All right, hey everybody, it's time to figure out how to make a video from scratch for the course using the open source program, free program, Blender, a very powerful program. And while it's not the best video editor in the world, it is a video editor. And while it's not the best compositor and green screen program in the world, it does that as well, and it's free. So let's see if we were to take the lecture in Thinking Out Louder, which is moving pictures, because we're into making movies now, and we were to go, we would go to the lecture and you would click on this button and download the video, and it comes in as a WebM for some reason rather than MP4, but it seems like Blender can handle that. So let's launch Blender and see how we would edit a video. So what we would do is, you see here it says video editing. You could click on that, or if you've clicked off of that by mistake and you're here in the Blender layout area, just go up to File, New, and Video Editing, and then you get a video editor. Now when you get in that video editor, you want to bring in that piece of video, and let's see where that is. That's under Downloads, which is here, and I should have that video in here somewhere. Where is that video? It's supposed to be in here somewhere. If I go to a vertical list, it may show up. Here it is, Envisioning, and it's the WebM. So I'm going to click on the icon of it and drag that into the timeline here, maybe in track 2, and now I have that video.
These are lectures from Module 3, Module 3.1.
All right, and I want to see how long that is, because the rendering area is only going up to here, and the video is a whole lot longer than that. So I have to go all the way to the end of the video. So grab on this and stretch it out, and stretch this out and make it as small as you can. And there you have the video.
These are lectures from,
and once again, you're never going to be able to play it unless you find the last frame. And at the last frame, which appears to be at 44 minutes and 52 seconds, the frame number is down here at 80,762. So that's what your end has got to be, 80,762. Okay. Now you can play it from anywhere that you like.
But very likely amazing.
All right. So we'll go back to the beginning. You can go back there with this little dot here, and start playing it. Now, the first thing we always do in our video editing is we want to get rid of the green screen, and that was considered to be impossible in the Blender Video Sequence Editor, or VSE. And yet it's not. It actually does work, thanks to the wonderful work of this incredible guy by the name of David McSween. So David McSween has this Blender VSE chroma key tutorial, and he says, some said it was impossible, others said it should not be done. I say do it anyway. And so he shows how to edit together images over a green screen and put them over any background in the Blender video editor. And it's quite amazing how he's done that. So I'm replicating that here, and I'm making it much simpler. He's looking for a much finer key. In his video, he puts in 4 different effects so that he can get the fine detail of the hair in this woman's face to not have any green around it. And I'm not going to go to that level of extreme. And he's also done that detail to get the gossamer cloth that this woman is wearing to key out properly. And I'm not going to do that. So I'm only going to use 2 of these, Key Master and Transform, not Key Edge and Transform 1. And that makes it a whole lot easier to do, since we don't have such exacting pressures. But if you want to really learn how to do it for perfect keying, or for very, very, very good keying, watch David McSweeney's wonderful video, since he worked out this technique. For us, what we're going to do is I'm going to take the video track, which is apparently one way you have to show yourself which one it is. And if you click on it, you'll see a video icon. So the dark blue is video, and then the audio is the greener one. It shows audio over here. And before you start editing, of course, a couple things you should do. One is when you're on the audio, click on Display Waveform, because that will enable you to ultimately see the waveform. And I can already tell from here that there's a huge gap that's going to have to be edited out just by turning on the waveform. And for that, then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click K for knife, and that broke that up. Oops, I shouldn't have messed with that. Maybe it didn't even do it. Oops. Oh no. Oh no, what's going on? All right, get it back where it is, otherwise it's going to be out of sync. So I've got to chop this up, and let me click on this and then shift click on this and then hit K. Yeah, that broke that up. And then let me come over here and click on this and shift click on this and hit K for knife. And I'm immediately going to start by deleting those strips. And then you do remove gaps. Should remove gaps. Not working. Remove gaps. It's not working. Why? Because there we go. Remove gaps. So that's the first edit that I've done, and I've got to really get those gaps out of there. But you can see there's a big mess in here, and then I leave the camera. So you can do your traditional editing right in there with this thing of clicking, shift clicking, and then hitting K for the knife, and then knife, right, and then erasing that strip and erasing that strip, and then doing remove gaps, which doesn't seem to work until you click on it again, and then remove gaps. It's not working. Why? Remove gaps. Damn it. It better work. Remove gaps. Not working. Click off of it, maybe? Remove gaps. Remove gaps. Maybe we have to make it bigger. Bigger. It's not letting me do it. Remove gaps. In that case, I'm just going to drag over these and slide them over. The heck with it. There, I removed the gap.
You were sure then you can be just an essay, a script, and even making an illustrator because they just might, if only you think and play a little more. Game on?
Now it appears
we all hear about famous documentary filmmakers like Ken Burns.
I don't even want to edit that part tonight, so I'm going to delete those and let this first be a shorter lecture. That's fine. That's what I'll work with here. But as long as it's syncing up,
thousands of years,
then I would like to be able to use this and make what's known as a meta strip. But of course here the ending has changed because I got rid of that other stuff, and so now the frame is 28,000. So I'm going to copy that and paste that into the ending, and now if it'll paste, there we go. Now I've got a render area that is just up to the end. Maybe it should be a little bit longer. So I'm going to pull it over. There we go. All right. Now it's time to do the cropping and the removal of the green. So I'm going to click on this, and I want to let you know also that if you're not hearing a scrub when you go through, if you're not hearing the audio, then it's again one of those things where you go to playback and go to audio scrubbing, and then you'll hear that. All right, that's under playback, audio scrubbing. All right, so I have that, and I want to get rid of the green. So what do? So I come here and I click on this, and I right-click on it, and I am going to make a meta strip. You see this? It also says Control G. So you can either just hit Control G, but to show you, right-click on it and go Make Meta Strip. Now, a meta strip is a cool thing because a meta strip will retain information of the modifiers you put on it. So having made a meta strip out of this, which I can maybe use in future for other videos, the metastrip, when you edit it, has whatever video you've dropped in. So this metastrip has that video in it, and I'm trying to keep it synced up with this audio. But the metastrip, then, when I've highlighted it, so I've clicked on it, it becomes white. See, now I'm going to add a modifier, going up here and add an effect strip, which is called a Gaussian blur. And I put that Gaussian blur strip in, which I'm not going to use to blur anything. It's just an effect strip that I can start manipulating the image with. And having that, I go to modifiers over here, add a strip modifier, and I'm going to do hue correct. And with that hue correct, I'm going to click on V for values, and I'm going to start isolating the green. See, I've selected the green there. And get rid of all the other values by Xing them out and then dragging them down until only the green is allowed to remain. So let me get rid of that and drag this down to the bottom, drag this down to the bottom, drag this down, drag this down. And what I'm trying to get at is a situation where I'm silhouetted. And only the green remains green. It's not a perfect key by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not that bad except up in there. And he would, David would do the thing where he would make another thing called a key edge, and he'd be even better at getting rid of that. And I'm not so concerned with that. I want to save us time. Then go to S for saturation and get rid of all the saturation so that you're getting rid of the color green entirely. You can click on these and eliminate them one by one. It doesn't let you select more than one at a time. But get rid of color. Saturation of color is now nil. So it's a black and white image. We don't mess with the hue. That's not going to do anything anymore. It's irrelevant. So it's the value and then the saturation. And just trying to get as fine a black and white image as we can. All right, then change the name of this strip from Gaussian blur to key master, so you know what it is. Now the next thing we're going to do is click on the meta strip again, and we're going to add another effect strip, which is called transform. And with the transform, which brings back this, we're not going to transform anything. We're going to add modifiers again, and the modifier we're going to add this time is called color balance. And we're going to give it a mask type called a strip mask and use that key master as the mask. We are also going to have to invert in our key master. We have the modifiers. We're going to have to invert the colors of this, and I probably let me get rid of this for a second so that we can see that, because oops. All right, okay, strips. It's black and white. It really needs to be white on black, doesn't it? Because so I'm going to add another strip modifier, and I'm going to make this strip modifier the color balance. No, not the color balance. Forget that. I'm going to add a strip modifier, and I'm going to do the mask. The mask. No, that's what I had to do for the other. 1 second. Right, sorry. I'm going to add a strip modifier called curves. And when I get to the curves down here, that contrast here, the C for contrast, has to be changed so that I bring this side down and bring this side up. And then I've got a contrast that is reversed. And you can also mess with these curves in here, adding points to try to get rid of any schmutz in the middle of it. So it's as black and white as you can as you can get, although you can see I've got a bad bit of business up there at the top. So you play around with these curves to try to eliminate as much of the inside as possible. That's not too bad. All right, now that I've done that, I'm going to click on the meta strip and then add my transform. And the transform has a modifier, and that modifier is to use a mask. And then the mask that I'm going to use is the key master. And then you can see it took away the background, which is spectacularly fun. So that's cool. That green up there and that bit up there I'm going to get rid of by going back to my meta strip. And then in my meta strip, going on strip, I'm going to crop it. So I'll crop the top by about, let's see, maybe 250. And then you have to click somewhere in here to see, and it actually stretched me up a little bit. And then I'm going to crop the right by 500, let's say. And yeah, and then crop the left by 500. And yeah, now I just have me. So I've cropped it and I have my figure, and I'll have to mess with the figure at some point, its position and its size. What happens if I crop the bottom by 100? It made me smaller. Sort of weird. And if I bring this back to 0, something weird is happening in the memory of the distortion here. Okay, now I've put it to 0, and my figure went back to its original size. So the cropping takes a few seconds to get going there. But you can see it's a pretty good, it's not too bad of a key. There's a bit of green up there. But when we throw our background image in, then we shouldn't have many problems with that. So this is one of those cases, like in all the videos we've edited, that you can start working with a background image and put it on another track. I'm going to grab all these, by the way, and then hit G and then move them up a couple tracks, because that way I have room to put some stuff underneath, and I still have room up at the top to put images that I want to overlay. So you can look at your thumbnails and decide, like, what's the guy talking about? And if he was talking about zombies, let's add that image strip there. It's a tiny image strip. Unlike the other programs that you may have used, you can't just click and drag on it, unfortunately. So you have to find that piece of strip, and you're on that, you're on that strip, and you'd have to decide how long that strip lasts and make the duration bigger. See this duration here. So your background image can be placed in here, and for some reason, I'm not seeing it behind there. Ah, of course, I know why. Because the key master has to be transformed in the strip area, not replace, which just replaces image, but you then have to put alpha under for the key master. And for the transform, you've got to tell it to be not a replace in its blend, but an alpha over. And there you go. Now you have the character
media and how they have been used to move people through propaganda and education.
So as you're editing now, you can put whatever pictures you think are relevant in here. Maybe we put a video, some video of a beach that we can put in here, and grab that video and, oops, if it's going to let me, oh, hit G. No, you're not going to let me? Hit G. Okay, that didn't work. I'll have to delete it. I should have brought it down and then brought it over, and it really doesn't want to go down there for some reason. There we go, got it down there. That was weird. All right, so you can put a video underneath. This video is only that long, but just like with any other program.
His early job was as a propagandist, and he excelled at it. To counter the Nazi propaganda war machine, Disney...
Okay. So if you want to talk about Nazi propaganda, for example, you put an image up there. So once again, you would go and you would find various images here. Let's see, Nazi propaganda. And go to images. And yeah. A German student who fights for the leader and his people. There's Nazi propaganda if you like. And we can put that into our downloads folder and come back to Blender. And it should show up if I go up a folder and then come down a folder. It's just got to refresh. There it is. So take that image and we can place it over this, but now look at how big that image is. It takes up the entire screen. So on that strip, we need to adjust it, transform it, and can we make it smaller? We can certainly offset it. Making it tiny is not as easy in this program as in other programs. I do want to make it a little bit longer so I can play with it. So I'm going to change the duration. At least I can see it now. And I should really stretch this out like this so I know what I'm working with. How to make it smaller? You can use a modifier, strip modifier. That's not going to change that. The strip itself, we can change its opacity for sure. You see that there is an image there. That's with the alpha over. We can mirror it in Y or in X. But can we change its size? Ah, that changed its size. I don't know why it changed its size just to hit offset, but it did. And if I offset it like this and then make its alpha whatever I want, then I have that ability to move the image around. Now I can't really, doesn't seem like right now like I can do much to size it, although I'm going to keep looking at working on that because it should be sizable. If I hit crop, then I'm just cropping parts of it, so that doesn't help. So the question really is there a way to change the size of this image? And yes, there is. I mean, you can right click on it and you can add a modifier, and that modifier, not that modifier, you can click on it, don't right click on it then, and add an effect strip transform, and then you can transform this using transform. The scale of it you can bring down, so you can adjust it like this and you can adjust its position. The problem is, of course, then you see nothing else but that when we get there, and maybe then we have to make this an alpha over as well. Alpha over. Yep, there we go. All right, so just like with the other editing programs you've been using, you now have the ability.
On the war machine, Disney and his team were hired by the U.S. military to make their own counter-propaganda films.
And then, of course, we're to here, and we don't have anything else underneath. But it is all working. So let's say that we wanted to bring in a picture like this. And again, you got to do this weird sort of dance to get this down there and bring this over to the end of this. And I'm not sure why this is, there we go. Bring that in there, bring this here, and then go to duration and make it longer, however long you want to make it. And when we come over here, there we go. So it's not impossible to make a video in Blender. That's how you do it.
Thinking out loud epics of human history was punctuated with an exclamation point. An evolutionary saltation was taking place.
evolutionary saltation. You know, the way that I always recommend that you do these is anytime you find a term that you don't know, a vocabulary word or a concept, this is the deep dive that you do. Look it up, see if there's any images about it. Gradualism and saltation, that's not too bad. Saltation and evolution. So there's some interesting ideas here, hopeful monsters. And you begin to get to know these things and what they are. So part of your job is to start reading about the type of saltations that there are, if that's a word that you don't know, and then see if you can find an illustration that would work for it. Saltation versus gradualism. If you don't find something, but it's a word that you think should be illustrated, you can go back into Blender and you can add text to this. So at that point there where you're doing evolutionary saltation, we want to add a bit of text. And it appears that all we need to do is to go to add text, and it comes up with a little text area there. And then when we look at the text strip, then we have a name for it. And I think we're just put in here saltation. Let's see what that does. It has a font. Put a shadow on it, but where did it go? If we put this on top of it, is it anywhere to be seen? Do we have to do an overlay, an alpha over? It does have an alpha over, so it's already in there. The color, I'm just not seeing the word there. I can make it last longer, and then I can change it later. Why do I not see it? Why do I not see it? Location, there it is. Haha. Okay, and change it in the Y, and move it in the X. So it says saltation. I really wanted to say evolutionary saltation. And then click off of that, and there it is. Now, it really doesn't look good yet. So there's things that we'll have to do to fix it, like the shadow. The shadow color is fine. It's black, but we'll have to do an alignment, wrap width. That just changes the wrap width, as you can see. Alpha over is one way of doing it. If you did an over drop, would it change it? Not much. So keep it alpha over. And what about the opacity? Well, that's as light as it can be. Not really the best font, maybe. Let me try this font instead. That's a little bit better. Again, changing the size would be good. You can change the size. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. And we can bring that in as a word. And hit G to move it over so that you can position. Evolutionary saltation occurs here. Okay, and you look down here and you can see where it says evolutionary saltation, that waveform. So use the waveform as well.
Evolutionary saltation is taking place.
I think it should be moved up. The only problem is you just can't click on it and move it up. Unless, no, not even hitting edit doesn't do it. So you have to work from here, which is not as convenient. But you do have these great text effects that you can put in. So I think it's a fairly decent editor. It lets you do everything that you wanted to do. And when you're ready to render, then you would go to this this tab here that shows like a printer, and just make sure that you have an output folder, that you want things to go to, and it's, for my money, it's got to go to Blender Renders. And then if you have audio in it, also, so find that folder and say accept, and then it changes over here, the output folder. You don't want the file format to be PNG because it'll be just pictures, like thousands of pictures. So you want to do movie, and you would do an FFmpeg video. And then you would go to encoding and make sure that you've picked the right kind of video codec. Like if you want to do MPEG-4 or MP4, then pick MP4 and pick your output quality. And then audio, it'll say audio codec, no audio, which means there'll be no audio. No one's singing this. So pick MP3 if you like. There's several others. And then once you have that all selected, you then can go and hit render. And the rendering you would do would be under View, and then Sequence Render Animation. And it'll render the range of this scene. If you just want to do a small part of it, and that's what we'll do, then you would go here and change the start to whatever you want to render. So if I came in here and I don't want to render, I guess that's all right, I'll render that much. That is at frame 2099, so I'll copy that and paste that into the start. And then my end, I don't want to go all the way to the end of the video. I just want to render just so we can see how it's working. I want to render right out to just here and make that ending, which is 3141. I'm going to copy that to the end, and that's all I'm going to render. I'm going to start here and end here. And you can see there's a little grayed out area here that shows with a line there and a line there what we're going to render. And so now when I go to View and then Sequence Render Animation, then it starts to render. And it's looking pretty good. Now when it's rendering, you're not hearing the audio, but you're seeing what you're rendering and hoping that the audio is going to come out okay. And I think that the lovely thing about Blender is that it does all of this, and you never have to leave the Blender environment. You can see it shows you the progress of rendering, so it's moving along frame by frame. It's really pretty spectacular, and the reason that you might want to do your videos in Blender, besides the fact that it's free and powerful, is that then when you're starting to do 3D animations, you can drop those in as well, just like we dropped in a text over here and we dropped in a movie down here. You can bring in your Blender 3D scenes and any artwork or images that you do in Blender, like the 2D animations and the comic book things, and bring them into the video as well. So it gives you a tremendous flexibility all within one program. And I think that's the advantage, a huge advantage of it. So once again, when you're making these videos, my recommendation is that you go through the video and you find background images that correspond with what is being said in the lecture, and then you find foreground images and place them in and put text in to illustrate the new concepts, the new vocabulary and words, and just sort of build it up and parse it out so that different students can work on different parts. And you're rendering it out as an MP4, so we're all sort of like in the same on the same page with that. And there's tons and tons of tutorials, by the way. This guy here, David McSween, as I said, made the great discovery of how to do chroma key in Blender without using compositing or nodes, which is fantastic. And then this guy here, Daniel Kraft, does a great job of giving you Blender tips to figure out shortcuts, because Blender isn't supposed to take you time, it's supposed to save you time. We're not getting you into Blender to make your life more difficult. We're getting you into it to give you more power and to be able to do more with less, certainly with less money, with less time, with less anxiety. There's tons of people out there to help you with this. And I'm making my own tutorials all the time that I'm posting. So you go to, if you go to my channel and you go to the playlists, you will see a playlist which is the Envisioning Sustainability class tutorials, and I do all my all my blunder-throughs here on how to use virtual reality, and the last ones are how to use Blender. I call them the Blunder through Blender. And so I'm trying to stumble through with you, and as I make new discoveries, record them and make sure that they're available to you. I just think that video editing in Blender is a total kick, and it really does work rather well. And now that we can do chroma key, thanks to David McSweeney, as easy as this, without using that horrible compositing node feature, which I only say is horrible because it takes a long time to learn and it's very frustrating. It does brilliant results. If you want perfect keying, you'd use compositing. But this on-the-fly stuff works. Okay, we've come to the end. We've rendered that, and that's the last frame of it. And yeah, our key isn't perfect. You'd use compositing nodes for that, but that was set up fairly quickly. And now when we go to our what? Where are they? That's the raw footage. Wait a minute. Go to the D drive and go to these tutorials and then go to the Blender render. You'll see what we just made.
Revolutionary saltation was taking place that would truly bring stories told about history and stories told from fantasy to life.
That's a bit pixelated.
With the development of moving pictures, the possibility for propaganda also became clear to many who were interested in promoting their own visions of the world and wanted to force others to conform. Adolf Hitler's early job was as a propagandist, and he excelled at it. To counter the Nazi propaganda war machine, Disney and his team were hired by the U.S. military to make their own counter-propaganda.
The images here have no correspondence to what I'm talking about because I was just using this for the tutorial. But I think you get the idea. One annoying thing about Blender's rendering is it comes out as an MKV file, and I don't know if you can just change that to MP4 and have it still work. No, it still plays, but it's, I don't know if it'll upload to YouTube that way. So that's the next thing for us to check. But there's also MKV converters as well. I'm not sure why an MPEG-4 comes out as an MKV. We've got to figure that one out. But there's a WebM over there, and there's MPEG-2 H.264, which is a pretty good quality, and that'll change the quality that you're seeing there. And you can do encoding speed good or real time. You can do an output quality that is lossless and high quality, so you can make it look a lot better. Anyway, that's the idea of using Blender for doing our videos for the course, and I encourage you to try it, and let's see what you can come up with. Happy blendering.